I'll ask you a question that I'm sure this is the very first time you've ever been asked this question. You have a book that's called Never Split the Difference. Why, in negotiations, should we never split the difference?
Yeah, well, there are two reasons. It's either a sucker's move or a fool's move. And neither one of those reasons are good. All right, so a lot of people will sucker you into splitting the difference. And, we'll be in a company, we'll be training, and one of their executives who's not in the training will stop me at lunch and go, I split the difference all the time. I use it all the time. So what's wrong with that? And I'll say, well, most people that split the difference just jack up the numbers that they want, put them way out of line, and it's actually a sucker move. They got you back to where they wanted to be the whole time, but they're lying to you, and you're going to think it's fair, the F word, and you're going to be suckered by that move. Every single time somebody pulls me off to the side in a company, they go like, yeah, I always ask for more than what I want so I can end up where I always wanted to be. So number one, it's a sucker move. The other side is probably conning you. Now, what makes it a fool's move? Splitting the difference means I take a little of your idea, I take a little of my idea, we try to blend them together. Yeah, that's apples and oranges. It's the analogy we put in the book is a black shoe, brown shoe. You don't know whether or not to wear a black shoes with this suit or brown shoes. So let's split the difference. I wore one of each. I mean, it's so bad. Splitting the difference or compromising. If there's a company I know, dispute between the two co-CEOs, the board settles it out by splitting the difference and basically banishing them both and bringing in a brand new CEO. Now, I know from what was going on behind the scenes, one of those CEOs was completely in the right. The other guy who had more to do with starting the company, and everybody felt loyal to him. The other guy wanted a secret expense account with no monitoring. They had every indication that the money was going to entertainment that was unsavory. But the board wanted to compromise. They didn't want to they wanted to be fair to both sides. And they threw both guys out. And now the company is struggling to regain its direction. So, compromise, splitting the difference, chances are you're going to water down both sides and it's just going to be a bad idea.
And I guess because we got to talk about the FBI. Like when you were with the FBI and being like their international lead kidnapping negotiator, undoubtedly an interesting time in your life. If you'd be open to it, can you talk about one of the most perhaps challenging negotiations you ever experienced? Because this is interesting in the sense that without a doubt, people now know you as the negotiation expert. But I imagine you've honed those skills through very, very challenging negotiations over time.
Well, one of the biggest ones, we talk about it in the book, the Burnham Sabero case in the Philippines. Now, we just come off of a kidnapping that went beautifully in that the hostage walked away. I mean, what we did was the great thing in negotiation is to create opportunities for good things to happen. You're not stalling for time, you're adding time. Create the opportunity for good things. In this particular instance, the bad guys, we wore them out with the application of empathy, enough so that the hostage had the opportunity to simply walk away. No money was exchanged. And the bad guys weren't mad when it was all done. The lead negotiator for the kidnappers actually called the guy that I was coaching on the phone to congratulate him and basically pay his respects. Not in an angry way. So we got another case with a different faction of the same group. They've switched everything out. They kill an American within the first week and a half. And they kill a bunch of people. I mean, they took over a dive resort. They killed people at the dive resort. They took a bunch of hostages. They sailed across the open ocean, 400 miles of ocean. They chopped off some more heads. There were some vicious guys. And then the thing ended about 13 months later in a botched rescue attempt by the Philippine military where the 2 out of 3 remaining hostages were killed by friendly fire. I mean, it was just end to end. It was a train wreck. What I really learned in that, though, was the negotiator that was the counterpart, he negotiated with us in good faith. And his team wasn't aligned behind him. Our philosophy that there's always a team on the other side. You can have a great relationship with your counterpart. you can genuinely read that your counterpart is being honest with you, because as far as your counterpart knows, he or she really is. If you haven't taken into account the team behind them and found a way to involve them, then your counterpart is going to have the limb sawed off behind them. It turns out that happens in the private sector about half the time. Well, there's a telecommunications company that we were talking with, involved in discussions to train them in negotiations. And we found out that fully 50% of the deals that they sign, not just that they negotiate, but 50% of the deals they actually sign are never implemented. What does that mean? It means that the point of contact was out of touch with his own team, and he got the limb sawed off behind him. I once had a salesperson refer to this as being single-threaded. This happened to us in the Philippines, and it caught us so off guard because we assessed our counterpart as to having legitimately made a deal. And our counterpart, when his side failed to back him up, he was actually genuinely humiliated. He was embarrassed, when he did all the things that somebody does when they're really embarrassed at the positions they're left in. So that taught me to take into account the team on the other side and how do we adjust accordingly.